What's up, everyone? Today we are ranking every 2D mainline Mario game from best to worst on a tier list. So I have this tier list linked down in the description below. If you're interested, you can make your own. Listen, this is just my list. It's literally not the right list. There's no good, ranking that is objectively correct. If you like a game that I don't like, congratulations. I'm so proud of you. And also, make sure you guys are aware that this is just the baseline Mario games, the main base ones. We're not counting remakes or remasters, so things that are ported to things like the GBA, and I know they have some more added content, or something like, the All-Stars games that got ported to the SNES, or even, something like Mario Maker. All of those are just not going to be included here because I personally don't think it makes a lot of sense, but let's get into the ranking. So, obviously, we're going to go in order. We're going to start here with Mario Bros. NES, the original game. Now, this one is a very iconic game, obviously. It started the entire franchise, so let's take that into account. Playing this game now, I think it holds up very well. I think it is one of the SNES, or one of the NES games that just holds up like a dime, and it is just a really good game all around. I think really, truly, the only way that I can ever beat this game is by using the warp. So the people that don't do that, I'm very proud of you. But for me, it's in between B and A. I don't know if we go all the way up there with an A because I do think that there is a lot to be improved here. But it is evident that this is a good game. And I think B is still a very good, ranking for this. We're ranking these games in the context of Mario games. If we're going to put them up with games that maybe aren't in the Mario series, games that aren't as good, sure, it might be lower, but when we're ranking it in the context of the best 2D Marios, I think it makes sense to put it in B. Hitting us with Super Mario 2, actually, so here's the thing, is we included Lost Levels here, and I don't know, we'll just go Lost Levels. Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels is basically a ridiculous version of this first one. It expands on it quite a bit. Some of the sprites and stuff are actually updated and better and cooler, but I really hate this game. I think it's horrendous. It plays horribly. They implemented all of these crazy things, and even for a long time, it wasn't even available in the US because they thought it was too hard for the audience. They were right, it is, so I'm going to put it in F. I really don't like that game at all. I think it's horrendous. Super Mario Bros. 2 is an interesting one. Obviously, everybody knows that it is a reskin of Doki Doki Panic, the Japanese game, and then they just kind of adapted it with a Mario skin, but it did show us some iconic things, right? That's where we got Luigi's Flutter Jump, Toad's Speed, and Princess Peach's Float. So I think it does have its merit in that way, but I don't love this game. It's the same repetitive boss just about every time you just beat Birdo, and it's not one of my favorites. I'm going to put it in C. Moving on to a game that I absolutely adore is Super Mario Bros. 3. Super Mario Bros. 3 is just amazing, I think, inside and out. It's hard for me to decide whether this is one of my favorites of all time or not, but regardless, it's up here in S. I think this game is truly amazing and has just, if you think about it, in the context of what Mario was at that time, this game fully took that original idea and expanded on it in every single way. It showed us what a Mario game really could look like and could be. And that's something that was so important because at that time, we have really only experienced about 2 Mario games, being the first one, which, listen, I wasn't even around for it, but what I'm assuming is you've experienced about 2 main Mario games at this point. The first one, which set the stage and the tone for what Mario could be. And the second one, which just really didn't know what it wanted to be. It literally took another game and reskinned it and just wasn't sure about the identity. And I think that Super Mario Bros. 3 shaped that identity and really serves, I've said this a few times, even in the podcast I have, Game and Talk, check out Game and Talk, but I've said this a couple times that I think that Super Mario Bros. 3 showed what the 2D Mario game should be, and it sort of created that blueprint that going forward they always went back to. If you look at even Super Mario 1 or the newest Mario game, it takes so much inspiration and almost outlines itself similarly to what we had here with obviously Super Mario Bros. 3. And then all the new Super Mario games, I feel like they're a big branch from this first one. It just goes to show that this game was designed impeccably, and it's so timeless and easy to play now. It's a fun pick up and play game. This, in the challenge that I did, and a lot of them I used the warps, and I sort of cheesed my way through them. I didn't do it where you could just auto save and stuff. I always did it where you'd have to be true to the original. You have to play it. Yeah, like you could do all the cheesing I did on the NES. So I did all that, but the one game that I didn't do that with was this one, was Super Mario Bros. 3, and it's just because it's such a great game, and they implemented all these amazing power-ups that have gone on to be so iconic and everything like that. I really think that Super Mario Bros. 3 shaped a lot of what we love about Mario nowadays. And so because of that, I think the only good place and right and correct place to put this will be in the S tier. Now, if we move up along here, we're going to hit it with some of our handheld console, versions. On the Game Boy, we got hit with Super Mario Land as a launch title for the system, and now this is actually an interesting game. One thing I hate about it are the physics. I think the physics here really, truly suck. I think they're really bad, but you will eventually get used to them. But coming off of playing all of these other really good games that did have pretty good physics, obviously, aside from the lost levels, I think that it sets you up to expect a certain thing from Mario, and that just almost wasn't here in Super Mario Land. Now, granted, it's a very limited system at that time, and at the time being a launch title for the Game Boy, they weren't really sure what they could do with it yet. So I'm going to give it a C. It's not a terrible game. I think you should play it if you're interested in the Mario series. You want to see where it came from. It's got some fun little shoot 'em up segments that are really random. And the fireball here, instead of being an actual fireball, it's that rubber ball thing, which is kind of fun and kind of random and kind of cool. But now, we move on to one of the best, I think, handheld Marios there is, which is Super Mario Land 2. I'm going to easily put this, I think, in A. I think that this game takes a lot of inspiration from Mario Bros. 3, but does make it its own thing. Now, in Super Mario Land 2, you could actually go wherever you wanted, and it was almost sort of this open worldy thing. You could choose whatever level you wanted to tackle first, or whatever world, and then you go through the levels within that world. And I thought that was really fun and cool and creative. And then eventually you beat all of those, and you make your way up to the final castle, and that is where Wario is introduced for the very first time. So it has such an iconic character, with Wario being the main baddie of this whole game, on top of just really good level design and really solid ideas and mechanics. I think the bunny suit is really funny and cool, and I really just enjoyed this game from start to finish. I think it really shows the potential of what 2D Mario could be on a handheld, because at this time, the only thing we had seen was the original Super Mario Land, which I don't think really lives up to its predecessors, even as far back as the original, with just the base Super Mario that came out launch day with the NES. Land 2 really just refined what we thought about it. It had such better graphics, pretty good sprite design as well. I think it takes a lot of inspiration from our next game that we'll talk about, which is, wow, isn't this ranking so great? This is not an ad, but this is to tell you guys about my merch. I guess it's an ad for myself, because I made merch, and I'm actually kind of proud of it because I think it's kind of fun. And some people have been asking me about merch for a while, so I was like, you know what? I gotta do it to them. So if you just go all the way over to the shop page on YouTube, or it might be store, one of the two, you go over there, all the merch is right there. All the merch is right there. It'll also be linked down in the description below. If you're interested, grab yourself a hoodie, grab yourself a shirt. There's stuff for men and women and unisex and everything. Everything's there, okay? So if you're interested in that, it directly supports me a lot, and I appreciate you so much. But let's get back in the video. Super Mario World. Super Mario World took what Super Mario Bros. 3 did and redefined it and made it its own, and introduced the iconic, ever iconic character, Yoshi. This game, the level design, the world, the sprites, the characters, everything was put together to a T here. This is by far the prettiest Super Mario game I think we have had ever. And I honestly think it is aged like fine wine. I have a really hard time deciphering, do I like Super Mario World or Super Mario Bros. 3 more? And at the end of the day, I think I'm going to have to put it behind Super Mario Bros. 3, because it was an amazing game, but what it did was take that blueprint introduced in Mario Bros. 3 and just improved upon it a lot. Granted, those improvements were big. It brought us Yoshi. It did new things with the platforming. It is still stemming from that base game without doing too much craziness on top of it. Now, I legitimately adore Super Mario World. I think it is one of the easiest games to return to and go back to and just play through for a little bit. I think it's so much fun and just a very overall great experience with some beautiful sprite design that even modern day indies haven't hit the peak of what that sprite sprite design was. Something I've said a few times and I always really love to point out when I talk about SNES games is how gorgeously those graphics have aged. Yes, it's pixelated 16-bit art style, but I think with the resurgence of indies, we've really come to appreciate solid, pretty sprite design, and that's something that Nintendo had on lock, especially in this 16-bit era. So while it's maybe not the most original game, I mean, it is original, it has a lot of its own ideas, but maybe it's not the most, brand new thing. I think what it did for the industry as a whole cannot be understated, and I think that's why it deserves to be up there in S. Now we're going to move on to some more divisive things. The DS games, the new Super Mario Bros. Series starts now, and it goes for about 10 years. We start with New Super Mario Bros. DS, a game that I sort of grew up with because I did have a DS. My brother mostly had this game, but I really enjoyed it. Now, at the time here, we hadn't gotten a new 2D Mario in quite a while. After about Super Mario World, they stopped because we went into the N64 era and then obviously to the GameCube era. And at that point, 3D Mario became a priority and became a focus. And so, with the return of the 2D Mario on the DS, that was pretty exciting for a lot of people. And really, all this game needed to be was a really cool throwback with some sort of new ideas. And I think they did do that with the Mini Mushroom and the Mega Mushroom. And I just do have a lot of nostalgia for this game, so I'm going to put it top of A. I think it's a great game, and while its reputation has definitely gone downhill in the coming years because of, the series that went on to become New Super Mario Bros., I don't think it's fair to judge that based on what the series ended up becoming, because this original one was just a really cool throwback that still did do its own thing. Now we're going to get into some games that really didn't do their own thing, and I think that's where the problem arises. Taking a look at New Super Mario Bros. Wii, a game that I also really enjoyed, the only real new thing was the fact that you're using motion controls with the spinnery top thingy, I don't know what that's called, and you get multiplayer. Now this is a big deal because multiplayer has gone on to become pretty much a staple in 2D Mario, so that was very important. But other than those two things, it didn't change a lot from that original DS game. But the fact that it was on a home console introduced, 4-player co-op alongside some interesting sort of new creative ideas. I don't think it's bad. I think we're going to put it top of B because it was a cool experience for me, and I did grow up with this game. I have so much nostalgia for it, so maybe it's not the objectively right choice here, but I think for me personally, with how much fun I had with it, it makes quite a bit of sense. I used to play this all the time with my cousins, and it was a really fun game to go back to. And even when I was doing this marathon, the fatigue of the new Super Mario Bros. Games hadn't set in quite yet. Now, it did set in once I got to this next game, New Super Mario Bros. 2 on the 3DS. The whole gimmick here is coins. And because of that, I'm going to have to drop it in C. The fact that all it wants you to do is collect coins. That is really the only new thing. It's just, holy shit, it's another new Super Mario games with a ton of coins. The art style is the exact same. The platforming in all of these new Super Mario games, really good, top notch. Like, it's not bad platforming, it's designed really well and really smart, but the issue is that it's getting stale and it's growing annoying. And especially when I was going through this marathon, this is really where I really felt this fatigue set in, this thing that I just didn't really want to keep playing the same game over and over and over again because it did feel so similar. The jump from Super Mario Bros. 3 to Super Mario World was different enough because they added Yoshi. They added big things there. And while those games can be drawn to similarity, it wasn't the same game 3 times with the same art style and very little improved. And at this point, that's what I was getting to see. So again, we get this game on the Wii U with New Super Mario Bros. U, where the whole thing is that you can make platforms and you have the squirrel suit. The squirrel suit is cool. You also got the baby Yoshis, which are fun. And I think there's some cool ideas here with, again, solid platforming. But at this point, I had grown really tired of this format. So that's why I'm going to put it in C. But I'm actually going to put it above the 3DS game, New Super Mario Bros. 2, just because I think the new ideas here of the idea of using the gamepad placed platforms on top of the squirrel suit, and a little bit of the platforming was a bit more inventive than just coins of the ladder with the 3DS game. Now we're gonna get into a really interesting one, I think. Let me take you guys back to the year of Luigi. This is when the Wii U is at its all-time flop. Nobody cares about the Wii U at this exact moment, and so Nintendo says, you know what I think we need? A new Super Mario game, but starring Luigi. And for some reason, this game is legitimately one of the best of the new Super Mario Bros. Franchise. That is because it offers something that none of these did, which is challenge. Basically, in every single new Super Luigi U game, the whole thing is that you have to go as fast as possible through these levels because you have 99 seconds. And in Mario time, that is actually like 60 real seconds. So you are on the clock for these games. It's stressful and it's a bit more difficult. And because of that, I think it adds a whole new level of just fun with the game, which is why I'm going to end up putting it at the top of B. I would actively enjoy going back and playing this game. And when I was doing my marathon, after coming off the heels of literally 4 of the same games with the same exact difficulty level, cranking it up a notch and bringing it back to these harder roots that were present with Mario Bros. 3 and even Super Mario World, it was really, really refreshing and a ton of fun. So I did super appreciate that. And I think that game often gets grouped in with New Super Mario Bros. U, which I don't think it should, because they are fairly different in just the way that they approach gameplay and how quick you have to move through Luigi U. If you have the Switch, oh god, this is the worst name they've ever created. So it's New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. It comes with Luigi U, so play it in there. It's a really good one. Okay. And the last game, and the most new, is Super Mario Bros. Wonder. This is a game that is really special to me. I beat this game 5 times, I think, maybe 6. I can't entirely remember. 2 of those times I 100%ed it. I 100%ed it by myself, then in co-op. Played through the whole thing initially in co-op, then played it by myself again. And then I think I've just continued to dabble in it every now and again. The special levels, the bonus levels, everything that's here is amazing, and it's just such a good platformer that I think really brought 2D Mario back from the brink. Listen, the last game we got was New Super Luigi U, and while that was an alright one, and I just talked about how much I did enjoy it, it still was samey and corporate because it had that art style that we were all getting really tired of it. So, with the addition of with the addition of Super Mario Bros. Wonder, it really just revitalized Mario. It gave it a new art style. It gave it this new idea with the Wonder Flowers that just flipped the levels entirely on their heads. Was it a bit too easy at times? Sure. But if you got to those special levels, you know that they weren't all a cakewalk. And especially if you got to the last level, that was kind of a brutal one. And so that was also the throwback to challenge that I did like and did appreciate. And I think because of that, and maybe a little bit of recency bias, and just because of how much fun in the moment I was having with Super Mario Wonder, I'm going to have to put that at the very top of my ranking here as the best Mario game. I think this, for me, sums up how I feel about the Mario franchise. We've got Super Mario Bros. Wonder at the top, followed by Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario Bros. Or I think it's just Super Mario World. And those are my top 3 games. And then in dead last, of course, we have Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. Like, I truly do not like that last game. I think it is definitely the worst of the games. I think all Mario games have merit, and even the ones down in C are a pretty good time. This franchise as a whole has a ton of quality here. It's really evident that Nintendo really cares about Mario and about putting their best foot forward, and I was so excited to see just the revitalization of the 2D Mario's, franchise with something like Wonder, because I feel like a lot of the industry is moving towards big 3D open games, and I think there's such a simple joy in these really polished, fun 2D platformers that just don't take too much time to beat, but their replayability is there, and it's there every single time, and that's evident with Mario Wonder. So, Nintendo, you did a banger job with that. Also, thank you guys for getting all the way to the end of this video. I appreciate you a lot. Make sure you stick around and subscribe. I made merch. Check out the merch. It's a good time. Remember, I told you about that earlier in the video. And I will see you in this video. It's a banger. It's a vibe. It's a good time. See you over there. Thanks for getting to the end. I appreciate you a lot. Already said all that. This was a fun video. Goodbye.